Dear flight students and followers, welcome to our series called The Toughest 5. Our mission is to help you succeed by showcasing how to solve the most challenging ATPL questions. In each episode, Fabian and I will go over the 5 most difficult and frequently commented on questions from each subject in the ATPL-Q database.
We understand how tough these exams can be, and we want to support you in overcoming these challenges by breaking down each question using sketches, easy tools, and highlighting nasty traps and incorrect answers to show you how well you can prepare for your theoretical ATPL exam and boost your confidence in doing so.
We will use ATPL-Q, which is best known among flight students as it is designed to be the perfect addition to studying the theory. With one of the largest up-to-date question databases, detailed explanations, and a thriving comment section for each question, ATPL-Q is the tool to prepare you for your upcoming theory exam. So do yourself a favor, reduce your anxiety, get access using the link below, then study with us, pass your exam, and take the next step towards becoming a pilot. The following questions will be from the EASA ATPL database subject performance. So pay attention, we'll give you 3 seconds to pause the question on the screen to test your knowledge and your solving strategy before we start with the explanation. Fabian and I are here to create yeah buddy moments with you. You'll see in a minute, so sit back and enjoy the ride, grab pen and paper, and let's get started.
1, 2.
All right, let's start with the first performance question. We will approach by ruling out the wrong figures to find the correct one. Fabian, do you want to go with the first one?
Thanks, Joe. To clarify, the dashed line represents the drag versus speed curve after the gear is extended compared to the previous configuration represented by the solid line. Now, just by looking at the first figure, you can tell it makes no sense. Do you see the little arrow pointing forwards, which is basically saying that once the gear is extended, the speed increases? Makes no sense. So we can rule out figure 1.
Okay, looking at figure 2, the speed gets slower. That's correct. But you see that the drag didn't increase relative to the speed curve. So we can rule that one out too.
Well spotted, Joe. Then on to the figure 3. Similar scenario as figure 1 and makes even less sense. The speed increases and there is no added drag. So we can rule out that figure as well.
So figure 4 is the solution. Once the gear is out, the speed gets slower, and regarding the dotted line, the drag increases. Now, a very brief solution to the question is that due to the coefficient of drag, which is increased by the configuration change and the increase in frontal area hit by the airflow, the curve representing the extended undercarriage must at all times be above the curve representing the gear up configuration and may never cross it. This is only the case in figure 4, so the drag is being factored by these 2 parameters of the drag equation. Does that make sense? Next question.
Yeah, buddy.
Alright, this question has received many comments, but guys, you'll see you can again rule out the wrong answers by going through them step by step. So let's start with answer B. The ground speed will increase. That's already the best indicator that this answer is incorrect. We all know that with increasing headwind, the ground speed decreases if you maintain a constant CAS or TAS.
Answer C now states that we should increase thrust to counteract the increase in drag coming from the sudden increase in lift, which they here refer to as ballooning. Although it is correct that an increase in lift comes with an increase in induced drag, but we did only receive this additional lift by changing from a relatively strong cross to a headwind, hence momentarily increasing the CAS. The CAS, on the other hand, is exactly the parameter the autothrust system tries to arrest. So an increase in CAS cannot be possibly counteracted by applying even more thrust unless the increase in drag is so enormous that the speed is immediately dropping at a rate so extreme that additional thrust would be necessary, but I highly doubt that this is the case here.
Answer D also makes no sense. Fine with me if you want to extend the flaps, but the mistake is the increasing airspeed. As already said by Fabian, with the autothrust system engaged, the thrust will decrease to maintain the CAS, so nothing is increasing. And another false accusation is the rate of descent must increase. We must establish that the ground speed reduces, and with reducing ground speed, your descent rate has to decrease too in order to maintain the glide path. So this answer is entirely wrong.
So to sum it up, let's look at answer A. The thrust will reduce because with the increased headwind you'll need less thrust to maintain lift, so that is correct. The vertical speed shall be reduced, yes, that makes sense too, given that the ground speed will decrease. Hence, all facts speak for answer A. Bazinga! Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, buddy.
Next. As you might already know from your performance teachers, this subject is one of the subjects for which you will need to know a lot of facts and figures by heart. This next question is no exception. Fortunately, the EASA regulation for air operations lists all of this in part CAT under subpart C, performance. Here it states for a multi-engine performance class B aircraft, the screen height to be reached at the end of the takeoff distance required is 50 feet. This is where the takeoff flight path begins and it ends at 1,500 feet AGL. Further, the failure of the critical engine occurs at the point on the all-engine takeoff flight path where visual reference for the purpose of avoiding obstacles is expected to be lost. The gradient of the takeoff flight path from 50 feet to the assumed engine failure height is equal to the average all-engine climb gradient multiplied by a factor of 0.77, and the gradient of the takeoff flight path from the engine failure height to the end of the takeoff flight path is equal to the one-engine inoperative climb gradient.
All right, okay, now that we've established the regulations, there's a little calculation to be done. First off, we need to calculate the time flown to get from the 50 feet screen height to the 300 feet cloud base. Now, this is the altitude at which visual reference is lost for the first time. A rate of 1,830 feet per minute times the all-engine climb gradient factor of 0.77, that will equal 1,409.1 feet per minute. So that's our climb rate, and now we have to calculate how long it would take to climb 250 feet at that rate. So 1,409 feet in 1 minute, or 60 seconds. How long for 250 feet? Quick rule of 3 calculation equals 10.64 seconds. Then we need to calculate the time for the second step from 300 feet to 1,500 feet with only one engine running at a given climb rate of 400 feet per minute. Next step is to add the 2 times together and come up with 190.64 seconds, which equals 0.053 hours. Last step in our calculation is to multiply this with our ground speed. Now, as there is no wind, the given TAS of 101 knots is also our ground speed. So if we fly 101 knots for 0.053 hours, we will cover a distance of 5.35 nautical miles. Boom! That'll give us answer D. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, buddy! Are these questions raising your anxiety? Mate, just calm down, use the link below to get your access code, go through the questions, use our video as a guide during the more difficult questions, and have at it. You can do this, you just need the right tool. Click the link below. Yes, that's a great Airbus related question. We've added a link to my flex temperature YouTube video. You might want to watch that first before going into this question, as the solution is actually in the video. We will again apply the ruling out of the incorrect answers. Off you go, Fabian.
So answer A. It is supposed that the assumed temperature method, or flex takeoff, can only be used by selecting a lower assumed temperature than the actual outside air temperature at the airport. That is incorrect, since with the assumed temperature method, we want to reduce the thrust in order to reduce wear of the engine, resulting in a longer lifespan and reduced maintenance costs. Since the upper limit of the engine thrust at airport elevation, however, is limited by the ambient air temperature, we would have to select higher temperatures for the flex takeoff in order to achieve the reduction in thrust.
Answer C. Now this one is super misleading, as some of it is correct and the other half is false. So the first bit, by entering the selected outside temperature value, the engine will produce a greater amount of thrust, is incorrect because it actually does the opposite. But the part of a higher selected outside air temperature value will tell the engine that the air is warmer is correct. And the second sentence again is incorrect. The right thing to say would be less fuel is required to maintain the correct fuel to air ratio.
Now answer D. Well, this one is complete nonsense now. The selected outside air temperature is actually a parameter that comes out of the takeoff performance calculation and which needs to be put into the aircraft's computer so that they can adjust the thrust accordingly.
Last but not least, answer B is correct, because yes, by pretending that the outside air temperature is much higher than the actual one, the engine control computer thinks it is warmer, hence less air density, therefore it reduces the fuel to air ratio and outputs a lower thrust setting. The little side note, in Airbus planes it's flex temperature, and in Boeing planes it's derated thrust and assumed temperature. Happy with that, Fabian?
Very happy.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, buddy.
Good. Alrighty, this question seems like a lot, but in actual fact, it's down to one formula you need to know and basic math. So let's draw a little sketch to make it easier to understand. Now disregard the screen height and trees for a minute. We initially need to focus on how high the plane will climb with the given factors. Therefore, we need to apply the formula for height difference in wind conditions. So we have the ground distance of 250 meters. We will now multiply this by the ratio of our true airspeed of 60 knots divided by our ground speed. With the headwind of 10 knots, our ground speed will be 50 knots. Now this ratio will easily allow us to determine the air distance in given wind conditions. A true airspeed to ground speed ratio greater than 1 means headwind, and a ratio smaller than 1 indicates a tailwind. Now in our case, this will give us 300 meters. But what are those 300? They stand for air distance flown in meters. Now remember, we had 10 knots headwind, meaning we've flown 50 meters more through the air due to the headwind compared to the distance over ground. Now we multiply the 300 meters times the 9% gradient. Because the gradient is given in percent, we need to divide the gradient by 100, which equals 0.09, times our 300 meters equals 27 meters of height. Okay, first step achieved.
Now let's bring in the screen height and the trees again. The 50 feet screen height equals 15 meters, so we effectively climbed to 42 meters. And the question asks, how high are we above the trees? So we subtract the 8 meters and bam, 34 meters is the solution.
34 meters is the correct answer. We hope this didn't go too fast. The key thing here is that you need to know the formula for the height difference and to read the question carefully and not forget about the initial 50 feet. Practice makes perfect, and if you want to practice more, get full access to all the questions on the ATPLQ database with this link. Yeah, buddy! Okay, this is a great performance question, how they should be, but I'll give it over to Fabian as he is the drawing expert.
Thanks, Joe. I'll do my best. Now, in order to get the landing distance required, you have to use the given data in the chart and work your way step by step down to the landing distance. So we begin with the landing mass of 45,000 kilos. Next is the airport pressure altitude of 4,000 feet. Next data are flaps 30. So we draw a straight horizontal line from flaps 30 all the way across the chart. Then draw a line downwards from the 4,000 feet pressure altitude and stop where those lines intersect. Then draw parallel to the flaps line down to the reference line. Next we have a dry runway. So draw another horizontal line from the dry all across the chart. Then draw from the reference line downwards to the runway dry line, which is also the next reference line. Then next up we have a 20 knots headwind. Draw yet again another horizontal line across the chart from 20 knots headwind and draw a line downwards from the dry runway. Where the two lines meet, continue the line parallel to the 20 knots headwind to the reference line. And because we don't have a tailwind, you draw a straight line from the headwind reference line down to the landing distance. And if your line drawing skills were accurate, you come out at 4,200 to 4,300 feet. Let's see what answer possibilities we have. 4,250 feet. It doesn't get any more closer than that. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, buddy. Sehr gut. By the way, if you do not understand this or similar diagrams right away, think of the effects the different parameters have on the final parameter we want to determine. Now, in this diagram, for example, an operative anti-skid system and dry runway conditions allow for a better braking performance, plus a higher flap setting, and a headwind will allow for a lower approach ground speed. So all of these factors decrease the landing distance, hence all the respective lines must be positioned further towards the left-hand side of the diagram where the correct solution is located. Also, be aware that with performance class A diagrams, safety factors, like for example wind factorization and landing distance safety margins, are already included. I really like this one.
We hope our problem-solving methods were clear and our sketches and explanations were helpful.
If you want us to tackle more of these challenging questions, use the link below to get your ATPL-Q subscription and start practicing right away. Notify ATPL-Q via email which question you'd like us to do a video on, and they will forward your request to us. The team of ATPL-Q is always there to help and answer your questions, and the question you struggle the most with might be the next one we're going to be answering in a video. And on that bombshell, here is your checklist for today. Subscribe to my channel, check. Activate the notification bell, check. Follow my Instagram account, check. And click the link below to start learning with ATPL-Q today, check. And don't forget, a good pilot is always learning and the best candidates come well prepared. Wishing you all the best, Fabian and Captain Joe. 1, 2.